Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Roller coasters and other thrill rides are important in a theme park, but sometimes you just want to relax instead of having your insides turned inside out. That is where more gentle rides provide a good solution, and what is more soothing than a relaxing boat ride on the water? Today we will be learning all about the ride that guests can super easily get stuck on, the boat hire. The boat hire, as its name suggests, allows guests to hire a boat for a while and chill out on the calm surface of the water. Especially when it's very hot, this is a great way to cool off and get ready for some more intense rides. Although, as nice as the sentiment seems, temperature actually has no effect on the popularity of the boat hire. Rain does stop them from riding it though, as none of the available boat types have a roof. You can build the boat hire in two different ways, with a track and without a track, meaning that the guests can go wherever they please. When you build a track, it is very similar to a car ride, as guests will be going around the track at a slow, steady pace. This is very useful for when you want guests to follow a predetermined scenic path, such as these two cute ones in Heide Park. How cool and interesting the ride is depends on how good you are with scenery, as the ride itself isn't that interesting. It literally only has 3 track pieces, the station, a straight piece and a tiny turn. Except this got a bit better in RCT2 recently, as they added small, medium and large turns and S-bends. It's still not the most versatile ride in the world, but at least you can do slightly more interesting things with turns now. And, fun fact, the boat hire is now the only ride in the entire game with access to all 4 different sizes of turns, which allows you to make massive spirals like this. The other option is a free roaming boat hire, where you just build a station and nothing else, allowing the guests to go on an exciting journey of self-discovery and eventually getting stuck somewhere and crying for help. Seriously, the guests are amazingly good at getting themselves stuck, unable to find their way back to the station. This is equal parts frustrating and kind of hilarious, and it means you have to really be careful with how you design your body of water if you want a free roaming boat hire. Before we get into how the guests behave when they're in a boat, I want to discuss some more technical aspects of the boat hire. Let's just get it out of the way. It's not a great ride type outside of being pretty. It has low stats, a bad throughput and attracts only 40 guests to the park. However, there are some redeeming factors that can make it very useful in some niche circumstances. The base stats of a boat hire are 1.9 excitement, 0.8 intensity and 0.9 nausea, regardless of whether it's a circuit or a free roaming ride. There exists a function in the OpenRCT2 code that appears as if it would give an extra 0.2 excitement to a boat hire that isn't a full circuit, but that doesn't seem to work, and in the original game that difference doesn't exist either. It would make sense that free roaming gets more excitement, and the OpenRCT2 devs obviously didn't just make this up, so I'm wondering what's really going on here. You can increase the excitement rating by building scenery and rides around it though, and I managed to get this boat hire to 3.57 excitement. This does allow you to charge a decent €7.20, although its throughput with the standard rowing boats is a measly 300 guests per hour, so it still won't make much money. The swan boats have a capacity of 4 instead of the rowing boats 2, allowing for a higher throughput of about 450 an hour, and it apparently also has slightly higher stats? Yes, that's right, the swans get an extra 5% excitement and 2% intensity, which isn't much, but it's better than nothing. The bonuses don't stop here though, as there is a boat type that gives much more, and that is the jet ski, which gives a massive 75% extra excitement and intensity and 40% extra nausea, the highest vehicle bonuses in the entire game. This gives it a nice 5.66 excitement and a maximum ticket price of €11.40, but unfortunately this is only a 1-person vehicle as opposed to the 4-person swan boats. However, since the jet ski is powered, it moves significantly faster with 20 km per hour instead of just 3. Combined with the fact that it's a smaller boat, which allows you to put 9 of them in the station instead of just 6, it has the highest throughput of them all with about 700 guests per hour. This actually makes it generate more money than some good thrill rides, such as the inverted swinging ship. It's still nothing compared to even a bad roller coaster, don't get me wrong, but for a non-coaster ride, the jet skis are pretty decent. Although, Unfortunately, this won't work in the vanilla game, as jet skis and the dolphin ride don't have access to tracks at all there, forcing you to make it free roaming. There are quite a few more boat types than the 4 we just discussed, and in total there are 11. The bumper boats, canoes, jet skis, rowing boats, swans, water tricycles, dough boats, dolphin boats, mandarin duck boats, outrigger canoes and turtle boats. They all look different and have slightly different stats. This is a full list of the capacity, speed and stat bonuses of all of them. The top 6 are from the original game and the bottom 5 are from the expansions and are mostly just copies of one of the original types. The faster the boat, the higher the stat bonuses, with the bumper and turtle boats sitting nicely in between the slow and fast boats. There is still a column missing here though, and that is breakdownability. I have frequently praised the boat hire for being one of the very few ride types that cannot break down ever, no matter how old the ride is. That is very useful when you need to attract guests to a park and don't want to bother with mechanics, as rides don't attract guests when they're broken down. For example, I built 84 boat hires in Alton Towers to attract the guests when I tried to pay back the loan as quickly as possible. Another aspect that helps here is that it's an incredibly cheap ride. It may only attract 40 guests, but these single station boat hires only cost 42 euros a piece, meaning you get nearly 1 guest per dollar of input. This is a feat only beaten by the one tile Death Maze with 1.4 guests per dollar of input. Okay, this is all great, you get a lot of guaranteed soft guest cap for very cheap, but what's the catch? Well, not all boat types are immune to breakdowns. In fact, only 4 of the 11 available types are, and those are the canoes, rowing boats, dough boats and outrigger canoes. All the other ones can and will break down and are thus not nearly as useful for exploiting the game. Notice that the 4 boats that cannot break down are also the ones without a stat bonus, as they are the boring ones that you propel without any mechanical advantage. Looking at this table, I would say that the jet skis and dolphins are the best for making money with their high speeds and stats, and the non-breakdownable boat types are the best for everything else. Except for making a good looking ride, of course, then it's whatever type you prefer the look of. There's one last thing to mention before we get to the guest behavior on open water, and that is the boat hire's vertical clearance. Most tracked rides require 2 units or 3 meters in between the track and whatever you're building above it. Some inverted coaster types need 1 more unit with 3, but no ride needs just a single unit, except of course the boat hire. This won't matter all the time, but occasionally it will help you out and allow it to go under certain bridges or tracks that it otherwise wouldn't be able to. Okay, we've discussed all the technical aspects, so let's now see how the guests behave when free roaming on the open water. They basically just go in random directions, deciding whether to go left, right or straight on at random on every tile. They can turn around 180 degrees as well, but only when they have hit a dead end, and that's the only other option. The one exception is if they are traveling in a southwestern or positive X direction in Open RCT2, where they can turn around 180 degrees randomly. But from my test, that can only happen if left and right are blocked. I would say that this is a bug, so it might be changed in the future. Speaking of blocked tiles, literally anything can make a tile inaccessible if it's placed within the 1 unit of clearance that the boat hire needs. A bush, a fountain, a path piece, a track piece, a fence, anything. Except supports. Even if they look like they should completely block the boat, supports don't actually exist physically in the park and are only drawn because it would look weird otherwise. For a tile to be accessible, it needs to be an open water tile at the same level as the boat. It doesn't need to be entirely made of water though. As long as there is some water on the tile, it counts. This leads to funny situations like this, where guests can cross a land bridge as no single tile on that bridge is 100% land. What's also interesting is that guests ignore the boundaries of your park. If you only have a slither of land available, but the lake continues outside of your borders, it will still function just fine. After 48 seconds of perusing the waves, the guests have a 50% chance to head back to the station every time a new direction is decided. If they do, they locate the end of the station and head directly for it. You can actually build a hybrid between a tracked boat hire and a free roaming one, in which case they will just treat the entire track as the station and head for the start of the track that connects to the back of the station. They cannot enter any other tracks, which means that a boat hire like this, while seemingly very easy, is impossible for the guests to complete. The disconnected bit of track in the middle is not considered part of it, and they cannot enter it, leaving them stuck in the open area before it. When heading back to the station, the guests will check in which direction the station is the furthest away and then head in that direction. This means that while they can easily find the station on a big open lake if it's across the entire map, they can also get lost super easily when they are very close by. For example, they will get stuck in these little fenced off sections, as they will only ever try to take the direct route to the station. Only if the randomness that happens 50% of the time takes them out of the trap, they will manage to find the station. This behavior makes it super easy for guests to get stuck if you have other stuff on your lake, and you need to be very careful with that. Except if you're into that, of course, then go wild and build the craziest traps imaginable. Guests can return to the station before this 48-second mark, as they will always enter it if they happen to go on the tile next to the back of the station or the track that leads to the station. While recording footage for this part of the video, I discovered a bug with one of the new track pieces, and that is that guests cannot enter a track that contains a large turn. So, if you're gonna build a hybrid free-roaming boat hire, don't use large turns in the bit that goes back to the station until this is fixed. If you decide to raise the land under a boat, then that's actually not a problem, as they never check the condition of the tile they are on, only of the tile that they want to go on next. This does mean that if you raise a big area of land, they will be trapped on the tile that they are on, unable to go on any neighboring tile. Boats can also get stuck if multiple of them try to enter the station at the same time, such as in this example right here. Often they can get themselves unstuck after a while, but sometimes they can't, and then the only way to solve it is to reset the ride by double closing and reopening it. RCT2 has fixed this issue, although when testing the same ride in modern versions to see if it was really fixed, they did manage to get themselves stuck right in front of the station. When will they ever learn? Even though the boat hire isn't that great of a ride, there are still two designs I want to highlight. The first one is this tiny design discovered by Nusse. If you block the tile right in front of the station, then the guests will instead head out of the back, and then, since they are now next to the back of the station, immediately go back inside. This works because when they depart, they initially move forwards, but then when they can't, they look for another way out and find an empty water tile on the other side. With the 4-passenger swan boats, this reaches a throughput of nearly 1,000 guests per hour, which is pretty good for a €46 ride, although at this low price the queue line will probably more than double that. The speed of the jet skis unfortunately doesn't help much here, as opposed to the bigger design we looked at earlier. It does earn ever so slightly more than the rowing boats, but the bumper boats and especially the swan boats earn significantly more, with about €3,000 an hour. The jet skis will not be deterred though, and with this second design they will get back their rightful place on the throne. This still very small design can reach a throughput of over 1,100 guests per hour, and with some scenery it can make about €7,500 an hour, for still less than €400 construction cost. For comparison, the amazing tiny corkscrew coaster, one of the best designs in the game for making money, can make about 19,000 an hour, which is only about 2.5 times as much. Perhaps I should reconsider calling the boat hire bad. Well, really only if you have the jet skis available, because if you only have the rowing boats, yeah, it is pretty bad. If you're playing vanilla or classic, you cannot use the jet skis for this, but the bumper boats are nearly as good. They even reach a higher throughput with about 1,250 guests an hour, which allow them to make nearly the same amount of money despite the lower stats and thus ticket price. Don't forget to turn off the minimum waiting time, by the way, otherwise the throughput will be much lower. And that's it for the boat hire. It's mostly a decorative ride type and fun for the guests that prefer less intense rides, but in some situations it can become surprisingly useful, or it will just trap your guests. To learn more about rides in Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, click here to see my hybrid coaster overview. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video.